30 seconds. I'm good.
All right, good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, June the 4th, 2019. If you are here or watching this, you are witnessing City Hall in Athens-Clarke County, and we are here for our monthly voting meeting. And so I'm going to begin by asking the Clerk of Commission to call the roll.
Davenport.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Link. Here. Wright. Denson.
Here.
Naismith.
Present.
Edwards.
Here.
Harrod. Thornton.
Here.
Hamby. We have 4.
All right, thank you, Clerk. All right, I will entertain a motion for approval of minutes of the Tuesday, May 7th meeting, the Wednesday, May 8th meeting, the Tuesday, May 14th meeting, and the Tuesday, May 21st meeting.
Moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Neesmith,
Second.
a second from Commissioner Thornton. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, please indicate. All right, minutes are approved. Do we have any written communications? All right, have a couple of items before we move on with our public hearing. Do have a very significant announcement. Sadly, Attorney Berryman is moving on in his professional life, and he's going to be leaving us at the end of this fiscal year, so at the end of June. And so we have advertised for and interviewed for, and now have a sole finalist for the lead attorney position here in the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County. And so I'm happy to announce that Judd Drake, who most recently has been attorney for the Unified Government of Macon-Bibb, is our sole finalist. And so by law, he will serve as sole finalist for the position for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks from tonight at a special called session, I'll ask the commission to confirm that appointment. So I want to make that announcement. And now we've got some very exciting presentations because of the great work done by our public utilities staff. And so I'm going to step forward. And we have a number of awards based on continued high quality in the Public Utilities Department. People who've been around the unified government know that for years we've had absolutely high quality water and wastewater treatment facilities operating here, and we're diligent in making sure that those operate ever better. And the people who are most significant are those people who are on the ground, who are doing that work day in, day out. And so I'm going to announce a number of awards. As I call your name, if you would come forward to receive your award, please. So first, for Beecham Water Treatment Plant for 10 years of continuous permit compliance, I'd like to call forward Dexter Hunter, Superintendent of Water Treatment, and Al Figueroa, Maintenance Administrator. Round of applause. Great work, Dexter. Thank you. Great work, Al. Thank you. There you go. All right, now for North Oconee Water Reclamation Facility for 7 years of continuous permit compliance, I'd like to call forward Scott Jones, Interim Superintendent for Water Reclamation, and again, Al Figueroa, Maintenance Administrator. Great work. Once again. There we go. All right, now we also have these gentlemen here for the Middle Oconee Water Reclamation Facility for 5 years of continuous permit compliance. All right. Nobody goes home lonely. All right, and once again, these two gentlemen are being recognized for the Cedar Creek Water Reclamation Facility for 7 years of continuous permit compliance. All There you go. All right, thank you. And last but not least, we have Public Education's Comprehensive Education Program of Excellence in Water and Wastewater Award. And I'd like to call forward Jackie Sherry, our Water Conservation Program Education Specialist. Thank you. And would everybody else who works in public utilities please stand to be recognized or raise your hand if you're in the back of the room. Everybody give these folks a round of applause. All right, they're out there working hard for us every day. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate your work. All right, as is our annual responsibility, we are going to continue with our public hearings on the proposed fiscal year 20 budget as required by the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So at this point, if you would like to speak to our budget as a member of the citizenry here with us tonight, please come forward. And if you want to speak on the budget, you have 3 minutes. Clerk Spratlin has a light on her desk. It's going to turn yellow when you've got 30 seconds left, and then red when your time is up. So when you come forward, just give us your name and address, and then you may begin your comments. Evening.
I am here on behalf of Mrs. Owens. She is 93 years old, and she is very concerned about her taxes. They went from $1,000 and they went from $1,000 and but anyway, they went to it was $1,100. She's very old. She's 93, and she's a widow, and she has a disabled daughter, and all of that comes to me. You know, put yourself in her shoes. Put yourself in her shoes. Miss Owens' husband served in the military, retired military, and she's very concerned about this. This bill is $1,474.69. Very concerned. So with all of that said, I'm not going to hold y'all long. Y'all don't have to put the buzz on me because I'm going to sit down. Please consider Ms. Owens, and her community is filled with older people. Please consider and try to cut some of this $1,000 down, please.
Thank you for coming, ma'am. Could I have your name just for the record?
Wanda, Dorscy.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dorsey. We appreciate it. Anyone else, please come speak to us now if you'd like to speak to our fiscal year 2020 budget. All right. Thank you much, everybody, for coming to speak about the budget. We have a couple other opportunities for citizen input tonight. Next is the opportunity for speaking to any of the consent agenda items. So those are items number 1 through 15. So if anybody would speak to any of the items number 1 through 15, now is the time to speak to the consent agenda. So just let us know the items you're speaking about, and then again, your name and your address.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commission. My name is Mocha Jasmine Johnson. I live at 2035 Timothy Wood Way. I'm excited to be here today because for almost 1 year, myself and various community members have advocated to eliminate cash bail for minor offenses and misdemeanors. And a few of us are here tonight because we would like to encourage you all to vote yes on adopting the proposed local ordinance that would amend arrest and bail for Athens-Clarke County violations, which will ultimately relieve some financial burden for those impacted the most by our criminal justice system. And even though we do have a few minor concerns regarding the disorderly conduct, Section C, subsections 1 and 2, overall, I believe this is a good step in the right direction, and we encourage you to, again, to adopt this ordinance. In addition to these amendments, we would like you to also consider adopting inmate labor compensation as proposed by Commissioner Tim Denson. Inmates who work for little or no compensation is another example of modern-day slavery, and reports show the prison labor industry makes over $1 billion per year selling products that inmates make, while inmates are paid very little or nothing in return, yet they come out of jail quite often owing the system. With all of these moving pieces and ongoing issues, we will also encourage you and urge you to establish a community policing advisory board to help support item number 3. And it would help to ensure transparency, accountability, and fair policing. Establishing a CPA board would also help to build an ongoing relationship with the community and law enforcement officers. And in closing, I would like to say thank you all for listening with an open ear, and thank you all for even considering to add this new ordinance on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Carol Sunland, and I live at 675 Rivermont Road. I am here to support the idea of a no-cash bail. I believe it's a system that punishes the poor and favors the well-to-do. I also support the Community Policing Advisory Board, and I would hope that you would be willing to set that up. So I'm here supporting adopting ordinance amending arrest and bail for Athens-Clarke County ordinance violence.
Thank you, Ms. Sunderland.
Hello, my name is April Brown. I live at 150 Sussex Drive, and I'm the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party of Athens, and I would also like to express my support for the adoption of item number 3 for cash bail reform for nonviolent and victimless crimes. The past year, I've had several conversations with many in the city, including local judges, lawyers, elected officials, and ordinary citizens about how Athens can improve our criminal justice system. I feel like our law community within the city has some excellent ideas that we can implement quickly and more cost efficiently than the way things are now. So many things that we can be so much so that we can be a bright, shining example for not only the state of Georgia, but for the country. By just issuing citations for minor offenses and updating our court communications from mailed letters turned to phone calls or text messages alone will make a huge improvement. This isn't about giving criminals a slap on the wrist, as many people have said it is. No one is arguing about violent crimes like murder or assault, but it's to lessen the burden of our bloated justice and prison system, and to allow people to feel like their lives are not over simply for getting caught with a dime bag when they were 20. Judge Ryan Hope, Officer Spurrell, and many others, and many of you actually, have expressed that reforms must be made, and I can't think of any better time than the year 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Good evening. I'm Robert Foster, 350 Pine Forest Drive. I'm also here in support of the adoption of ordinance number 3, amending our arrest and bail to Athens-Clarke County ordinance violations, and also here to advocate for further changes, of course. I am the co-chair of the Racial Justice Task Force at Oneonta Street United Methodist Church, and we see it as our job to advocate alongside groups like Athens Anti-Discrimination, the Athens Immigrants' Rights Coalition, who often meets in our building, with Broderick Flanagan, our different partnerships with these people. And one of the ideas that has been mentioned already that we're very concerned about is the idea of having a community police advisory board, because many of our neighbors in our community around Oconee Street United Methodist and our undocumented neighbors are concerned about, they value the safety and protection that they get from our police, but also see them as threats in some ways, right? And a short violation, a minor violation can lead to deportation from a family, or we go to court every Friday and see the imbalance of arrests by minorities compared to white people. And so we're concerned that a community police advisory board would solidify the interaction between the police and our community that are most affected by policing. It does need to have some teeth. We've got a proposal out there that's on a website. We're glad to forward it to you. And we have some community signatures to that. We got 99 out of 100 we're looking forward to have tonight. And I know we can get more for that. So I'm asking you to consider, in addition to this adoption, other kinds of reforms like the Community Police Advisory Board. And I think especially the CPAB would be a great priority for the new Diversity and Inclusion Office that is opening soon later this year. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Foster.
Hi there, I'm Barbara Benson. I reside at 235 Dubose Avenue, Athens, Georgia, 30601. And I want to thank the Mayor and Commission for your support of Ordinance Number 3. It's very exciting to anticipate where we're headed with the no cash bail. So I want to just, again, thank you very much for your joint support. And I also want to reinforce the desire to establish a community policing advisory board for many of the same reasons that my friends have already shared, but many communities do have some kind of residential oversight of local law enforcement, so it's typical in other communities. And what I think it can do for Athens is help to really promote ways to provide trust and transparency among the police officers and the community at large. And I want to thank and wish Mr. Behrman good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.
Hey, y'all. I'm Erin Stacer, 378 Atlanta Avenue. I'm speaking here tonight on behalf of Athens for Everyone. We want to commend the efforts of Commissioner Tim Denson, Commissioner Mariah Parker, and other public officials to bring the Freedom Act of Athens-Clarke County, designed to eliminate cash bail for violations of the local code, before us. At this moment, we are reminded of just how important grassroots advocacy is, as this is a result of months of research, collaboration, and public pressure from Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement, A4E, ACLU, and other community advocates. Athens for Everyone is excited about the Freedom Act, its potential to reduce arrests in Athens and establish a local commitment to oppose cash bail, because cash bail disproportionately harms poor people of color. Yet, to hold true to the spirit of ending mass incarceration, the Freedom Act should be accompanied by a community police accountability board to ensure that law enforcement is not applying discretion in a discriminatory manner. For example, for the local code violation of disorderly conduct as written in this proposed act, an officer may book someone into jail instead of writing them a citation. A CPAB is necessary to make sure that this doesn't turn into just another way that more Black and brown Athenians are forced into the criminal justice system. The Freedom Act is a promising first step toward correcting decades of harm inflicted by the criminal justice system. And we're looking forward to continuing the conversations about how to create a more just justice system here in Athens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stacer.
Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Carter. I live at 175 Oglethorpe Avenue. I also work at the University of Georgia. I'm here to speak in support of agenda item number 3 as well. But I want to put it into context of our labor politics. It is crucial to understand the inherent connection between cash bail, white supremacy, and anti-labor politics. Cash bail is an anti-labor policy that institutionalizes anti-Black and anti-Latinx enforcement of low-level crimes, which perpetuates class and racial inequity in workspaces where workers of color are disproportionately underpaid and lack workplace protections. At UGA, Black and Latinx workers make up over half of the part-time workforce, earning only a minimum wage. Attending court is unpaid leave, which is subject to suspension and termination. In low-wage positions, supervisors, police attendants, and heavily scrutinize workers' criminal records. Even with paid annual leave, many full-time workers of color have multiple jobs and still cannot afford fines. As a result, in a cash bail system in an at-will state, a seemingly ordinary traffic ticket or a municipal possession violation actually jeopardizes a person's freedom to work. Workers often have to choose between going to court and risk job loss, or skipping court to go to work but then risk arrest, which still results in job loss. From the jump, cash bail is a violent anti-labor policy that renders low-wage workers as de facto guilty by virtue of their poverty, but rewards higher-wage workers and their families, who are predominantly white, because of their job positions, easier access to legal services, and wealth. This is why cash bail is white supremacist and dehumanizing. It institutionalizes the de jure practice of pretrial imprisonment of persons of color, in no small part because of their employer, for example, UGA, and it neither pays a fair wage nor affords them the same dignity and respect as many white employees. But with the elimination of cash bail, Mayor and Commission has the opportunity to protect workers of color. There is no freedom in this community when Black and Latinx persons are treated as a benighted class and imprisoned not only because of unjust policies, but unjust employers. The elimination of cash bail is one of the first necessary steps toward a free and just community. So I'm excited that Mayor and Commission has the opportunity to make this first step tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Good evening. I'm Keisha Ross. I reside at 350 Huntington Road. I'm speaking on the ordinance of amending arrest and bail for Athens-Clarke County. Here alongside Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement, I am the youth leader and coordinator. So I'm here really to speak on our youth. Lately, this year, we've noticed a lot of arrests within our youth, and it's causing them to not be able to really live their lives. A lot of arrests being unnecessary arrests, bullying, and a lot of different things happening inside the school system, outside the school system. But what we're feeling is a second chance and not an arrest could cause them not to get their life deterred and taken away. Just recently, we had an altercation, and we've spoke up on it, but we're trying to resolve the altercation. So I do appreciate y'all for being here and taking the time, but just speaking up on our youth and getting arrested for things that could be prevented, as well as giving them some other type of offense versus locking them up and ruining their lives. So that's what I'm speaking on. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ross.
Good evening to the mayor and council. My name is Mary P. Bagby. I reside at 1442 East Broad Street, Athens, Georgia, 30601. And I'm here tonight to support the adoption of the ordinances. Ordinance number 3, amending arrest and bail for Athens-Clarke County ordinances violations. And one of the reasons why I'd like to do this tonight is because the police are using their discretion, and it's an abuse of discretion the way they're using it, because I personally know of one Caucasian person that's received about 12 tickets in the last year, and the police gave her an option. She didn't have insurance. he gave her the option to have her car towed. If he had it towed, she would have to pay to get it out. And then he stopped another black person a week later and gave this person a ticket and had her car towed. So I don't think the police should use their discretion. I think the law should be used across the board. I think the law that's in place should be used in place because it's really being abused at the discretion of the police officers. Thank you.
Thanks for visiting with us, Ms. Bagby. All right, friends, come on down.
Talking to me. My name is
Definitely.
Paul Prenovitz. I live right here in Athens, Georgia, 325 Fairway Drive, for the last 20-odd years. I, too, would like to support the adoption of number 3. Bail imposed tremendous burden, especially on those who can't afford it, and then kind of screwed, you know. Other folks have been more eloquent than I. I also feel strongly that there should be a review board governing the behavior of everybody on the police force, as was said just recently. Each individual officer uses his or her discretion, sometimes fairly, sometimes not so fairly. Sometimes it's a racist decision, often it's a biased decision. Shouldn't be that way. So there needs to be a review board, I believe. Third point regarding inmates, yeah, they ought to get paid, especially if corporations are making money off their efforts. They should most certainly get paid for the labor that they provide while they're in prison, be it a few months, a couple years, you know. And that's it. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mr. Predovitz. Anyone else to speak on the consent agenda? All right, we're going to come behind the rail. Would any commissioner like to remove one of the consent agenda items from that consent agenda? Commissioner Neesmith?
Don't take this wrong. I'd like to remove item 3, not to debate it, but to discuss it. And me particularly, I'm going to discuss some next steps that I'd like us to get into sometime.
Any other item from the consent agenda? All right, so number 3 has been removed. I'd entertain a motion for adoption of items 1, 2, and 4 through 15.
So moved.
There's some ordinances that the attorney has to read first.
First is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to fees and taxes for insurance and such purposes. Number 2, an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to booting, immobilization of vehicles in private parking lots and for other purposes. Number 4, an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to partial removal of parking restrictions on Woodlawn Avenue and for other purposes. 5, an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to parking restrictions on Georgia Drive. 6, an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to loading and bus stop zone modifications on East Broad Street and for other purposes. And 7, an ordinance to amend the FY 2019 annual operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide funding for personal services expense related to part-time and overtime expense overages in Board of Elections Department and for other purposes.
Thanks for that, Bill. So I believe we had a motion from Commissioner Neesmith. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Neesmith, a second from Commissioner Link for adoption of the consent agenda, save item number 3, which is moved to discussion. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, please indicate. All right, so the consent agenda is adopted. We're going to move on to citizen input on old and new business. So again, that's item 3, and then 16 through 26. So anyone who'd like to speak to 16 through 26, come on down.
I'm Michael Smith. My family owns property off North Chase at 147 Bryan, and I'm just going to say a few words about that. I think, I know there were some questions at the agenda setting meeting, and I think, you know, the whole neighborhood, the whole corridor really came back into the public eye about 4 years ago. And there's been a lot of discussions, a lot of public meetings on a wide variety of topics associated with that corridor. And I know that there's a few business owners on the Chase Street corridor that say they never know about any of the improvements or any of the things happening. But I've at least met most of them, and they do know. And they, what we need to focus on, I believe, on that corridor is the very most important part is the interchange between going to up North Chase to Newton Bridge Road where the loop intersects. We need to start developing within a half mile of that loop on the opposite side of the in-town side, if that makes any chance, if that makes any sense. It's going to relieve a lot of pressure on in-town development and give people quality of life opportunities outside the loop. And so I think I just want to point out that North Chase is not the only interchange that needs work. We need interchange work because of ongoing development on Commerce Road. We need it at North Avenue. And by collaborating with the state where they're paying I guess $6 million, if approved, of the $8 million budget, both state and county planners can begin to work together in an efficient manner. So hopefully in the near future, we can move on to those other interchanges, really all the way to Georgia Square Mall and to Peter Road, where there's lots of persistent poverty issues outside the loop. So I'm fully supportive of that item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yep.
Any other citizen input on old and new business, items 16 through 26? All right, seeing none, we are going to go ahead and continue our commission conversation. And as Commissioner Neesmith asked that we have some opportunity for discussion of item number 3, I'll ask him to kick off discussion of that item.
Yeah, I'm just kind of taking an opportunity here because I'm fully supportive of item number 3. I think it's a good move for the right reasons, but it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the things we can do to make our criminal justice system more effective, and by that I mean helping people as opposed to just punishing them. And that is the people with behavioral disorders. We know now that over 40% of our jail population have been diagnosed as having mental illness by comparing our records of jail admissions to the records at Advantage Behavioral Health Systems, where they have been diagnosed. Over half of that 40% returns to jail within a year. They're not necessarily getting any treatment, but they are being punished, which actually exacerbates their mental illness because it increases the stress on their lives and their families. And of course, it's usually accompanied by substance abuse, which is basically can be considered self-medication for a behavioral disorder. There are methods, there are intercept models where we can begin to first of all, avoid arresting people who maybe are exhibiting a behavioral disorder, and perhaps they're not eligible for jail because they're considered a risk to themselves or to other people. We need to very proactively put in place the systems and the capacity to, instead of putting them in jail or in the emergency room, to take them to a behavioral crisis center. Where they can be observed and treated and get into a program, as opposed to those more expensive and less effective things. We need to modify the way our jail works so that they're getting the drugs that they have been prescribed for their behavioral disorder, as opposed to not having the drugs or being given the wrong drugs that the jail decides they need, not their physicians and clinicians. So I hope as we go forward, particularly with the prosperous Athens projects, that we keep that in mind. When it comes to criminal justice reform, I believe, I'm convinced that this is one of the most effective things that we can do, and it will save the government money, and these people can get treatment, and their lives can be improved as opposed to continuing to be a victim of their own behavioral disorders. Thank you. And I move that we adopt item 3.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor Gertz. I'm very excited for us to be passing this cash bail reform ordinance tonight. I believe the community has placed a mandate on this mayor and commission to reform our criminal justice system, and I think this is one of our first big steps towards that. It is only one step, though. We have a long ways to go. But getting this obvious, what was in our control to get rid of cash bail so that we do not have two justice systems, a justice system for the wealthy and a justice system for those who have less. That is unjust, of course. So I am very excited about this. There definitely are some, I think, improvements that we can definitely be doing that are intertwined with this, and I support all of Commissioner Neesmith's suggestions there. One of these things tied into that is there does leave room for if a person is arrested, if a person is come across that is publicly intoxicated and they are seen as a danger to themselves or others, they are able to be arrested by the officer and taken in, which, I mean, we understand that we don't want to have people who are dangerous to themselves or others in the community until they've sobered up. But it'd be fantastic if we could partner with somebody like Advantage Behavioral Health to have a sobering station where a person can be sobering there, and once they are sober, have the resources needed to actually deal with some of those substance abuse issues, rather than sobering up and waking up in a jail, which probably is not going to really help whatever reason got you to that point, that intoxicated point. So I think there's some places for us to build on here. And I just want to thank staff, thank the attorney's office, and thank all of the community members who advocated for this and made this a reality. And I support it fully.
Commissioner Parker.
Thank you. And I wanted to take a leaf out of Commissioner Neesmith's book for a moment and to put this in the context of larger reforms that we are working on. And by asking Mayor Gertz, where are we at with establishing a police accountability board?
I'm glad that you asked. We are kicking off several citizen bodies this year, a couple of on our agenda tonight. I've been in a series of discussions with the manager and Chief Spruill about the police advisory body, and so that's going to kick off this summer. So we're still putting some flesh on the bones of that, but that'll be summer 2019.
So it's June. So summer, like July? August?
Summer lasts until I think September 20th.
Okay, great. Just want to narrow the scope a little bit, time-wise.
In the formal northern hemisphere summer, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'm also excited to support this piece of very needed legislation.
Commissioner Link.
Yeah, Commissioner Parker stole my question, but I just want to plug for that police advisory board. There are some concerns still with the officer's discretion for disorderly conduct, and I feel like having a body like that in place can help guide some parameters for that discretion, and also really help formalize the relationship between the police and our citizens and some of our citizen advocacy groups, and enable that communication, offer an official means of communication among those groups. So, everybody can be on the same page with policies and the needs of our community, and there's open communication. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that board get put in place.
Commissioner Denson.
One last thing that I wanted to build off of what Commissioner Neesmith brought up, with the need for those who unfortunately are not able to have a signature bond and be able to get out, but have had to be incarcerated in our jail, that currently right now we are providing medical services to those inmates via a private contractor. And that private contractor uses their own mental health specialist, not somebody who is attached to Advantage Behavioral Health, not somebody who has access to that person's medical records to know where they are at and possible, getting mental health treatments. And I think that is something that I believe that we'll be talking about renewing that contract here shortly. But when we do that, I think it's very integral that we have somebody there who has access to those medical records, and so that people can be getting their medications and their treatments while they are in jail, not having a lapse happen while they're incarcerated, making it even more likely that they come back to that same jail.
Commissioner Neesmith.
Thank you, Commissioner Jensen. I wish I had said that, because you're exactly right. It's kind of silly for us to have advanced behavioral health capacities, and the fact that it's very likely that a person with a behavioral disability is already a client of Advantage, and Advantage can not only treat them while they're in jail or continue their treatment while they're in jail, they can continue their treatment out of jail, and if necessary, at no cost to the citizen. This is a state-funded organization, and they get fee for services. So I agree with you. I think we need to look at that very carefully, because I think paying a mental health specialist from a private company in jail is spending money very ineffectively, and ineffective indeed. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to highlight, for the benefit of the audience and others, that the majority party of the state legislature sponsored a bill this past session that would preempt this action that we're taking tonight. And that bill will likely be back the next legislative session. So again, doing our best here at the local level, and encouraging Athenians to pay attention to who we elect to the State House and the State Senate, because while we can come together and cooperate and create great reforms here, they can just as easily be undone next legislative session in Atlanta. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. I do, Commissioner Thornton.
Did I miss the opportunity to address item number 11?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I need to send y'all an email.
This is the West Broad area, kind of near the Hampton Inn.
Yeah, I just noticed something in the minutes that we got on this, and I guess GDOT was recommending that as we do these developments, that we look at disadvantaged business owners. It was one of the paperwork. I don't know if anybody else seen it, but it's in that. I just want to make sure that we're aware that even GDOT recommends that we look at disadvantaged business owners and veterans when we're doing a lot of this contractual work. I think sometimes we don't think we have that, and they even have a website that we can contact or look up possible people to work with. So we need to make sure we use every opportunity to reach out when we have these kind of developments. And like I said, I was trying to find it in the paperwork I read yesterday, but it's there.
Definitely forward that to the body, Commissioner Thornton.
Yeah.
That'd be beneficial.
Okay.
Thank you.
It is definitely there.
Before we call for a vote on item number 3, and following up on queries from Commissioner Parker and Commissioner Link, I did want to highlight sort of a continuum of activity, some of which is already underway and some of which is forthcoming, but not yet on our agenda. So I keep something of a working document of our criminal justice reform and innovation activities. And of course, we're involved in lots of preventative work in Athens-Clarke County, and I think it needs to be noted that a little bit of prevention is the most significant thing we can do, so that we don't put people in compromised conditions in life generally that lead them into situations in which they might encounter somebody in the criminal justice system. So an enormous amount of that work is happening, including, I'll say, reinitiation of Grand Slam that begins just this week. So I'm excited about that. We've already kicked off in our municipal court the court contact initiative that utilizes text messaging and email to contact people who are supposed to be showing up in court. And that really is sort of the gateway for eventual use in all our courts. But we're rolling that out first in municipal court. tonight, we're doing cash bail elimination. Beginning in July, we're taking advantage of House Bill 407 from the last, not most recent 2019, but the 2018 legislative session, which will begin to roll out citation in lieu of arrest. So being handed a ticket rather than being taken down to the jail for a number of low-level misdemeanors, including small-scale marijuana possession. The citizen advisory body is going to be initiated this summer. We have funds in the budget that's up for approval tonight for a longitudinal data management system so that we and the public and all the members of the criminal justice system can have a comprehensive view of what's going on in terms of throughput from phone calls that are being made to 911 to people that are coming back to Athens from the state system. Speaking of the state system, we're in a series of conversations with the Georgia Department of Corrections about support that we can provide for those folks who are inmates at our corrections system. When you're working with a state agency, it involves lots of conversation, but that conversation is fervently underway. And so I'm excited about that. And we have, again, embedded in this budget, $150,000 for education, career planning, and post-release support. Future activities that are gestational right now but underway is looking at what we can do to support those undocumented persons who, at least in the environment we've been in, have been getting picked up for driving without a license. And I've offered to other courts a standing offer of some pretrial support for state cases so that we can look at case management rather than spending time in jail or paying for bail or bond for those state cases that aren't fully under our purview, but where we can offer some staff support. So just want to let everybody know that there's an enormous amount of work that's ongoing, and so I'm excited about this getting way. Do believe we have a motion on the floor for item number 3 from Commissioner Neesmith and a second from Commissioner Link, and Attorney Berryman needs to read the ordinance before our vote.
There are actually 3 ordinances. The first is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to citations for ordinance violations and for other purposes. The next is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to bail for ordinance violations and for other purposes. C, an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to repeal of preempted ordinances and for other purposes. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Attorney. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, please indicate. All right, motion passes. Excellent. All right, we are now scrolling down our agenda to item number 16, and be interested in any commission input on item 16. Commissioner Link?
This is our grant application for Chase Street corridor improvements, and it's kind of been a long time coming. You know, this is a growing part of the community and a part of the community that, you know, we pretty much agree needs to grow. So I really look forward, I hope we can get this grant, and I really look forward to the planning process to see what we can do to calm traffic, to better enable the smooth flow of traffic, to prevent the frequent accidents at that interchange, and to also hopefully encourage some growth and some economic development and investment in that area. So,
All right, thank you, Commissioner
I'll
Link.
move that we adopt this.
A second.
All right, got a motion from Commissioner Link, a second from Commissioner Parker. Any other commission input? Commissioner Neesmith?
Yeah, I look forward to the planning process. I look forward to very effective communications, particularly with the businesses along these corridor. Despite what some people say, I do know businesses who don't understand this. Whether they've been to a public hearing or not, they don't understand it. It hasn't been explained well. And so we will have to do that and be certain that the design accommodates their needs, which their needs isn't for traffic to get through there. Their needs are for those interchanges to work with those streets. That's their concern, particularly with semi-trailer trucks. So I just want to be sure that we do that, and I'm sure that Commissioner Link and I will make that happen.
All right. Any other input? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, please indicate. All right, number 16 is approved. All right, we're moving on to item number 17, wastewater connection fees for 2 sewage systems along the western fork of Trail Creek, otherwise known as the Pine Woods and Country Corners area. So, Commissioner input on this item. Commissioner Thornton.
I'm trying to keep up with all of this stuff. I've been in regular contact with Attorney Berryman. I appreciate his help, and he did explain everything to me, and I do support the recommendation. I do want to, one of the things that he did clarify, we're looking at the financial piece for residents there. Pinewood would be about $18, Country Corners would be about $51, but we know that is between the landowners and not us. But one of the things I was concerned about is that if and when Country Corners or Pinewood, if they ever decide to change that area from anything other than housing, they would have that infrastructure in place. So the only thing that I would like to recommend, and I hope I read this right, Bill, but let's see. I would like to make a motion that through 1 through F on the options, that we authorize the manager's office with the approval of the mayor to negotiate an agreement with the park owners that will require full payment of the sewer connection if the property is not consistently used for housing. So if they decide that later on they want to move people out and whatever, that they would have to repay us for the
Connection fee.
connection fees. That would be the only thing.
So your motion is option 1, A through F with that amendment?
Yes.
All right, do I hear a second?
Wait, could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Bill, help me out here.
Okay, the only thing I was going to ask is, we had discussed putting a finite period of time.
Oh, yes.
I suggested 5 years.
Yes.
For at least to be done that, for that long.
Oh, you did tell me that? Okay. All right.
I think we need clarification on what the motion is.
So as I understand
And I'm going to
it-
let Bill help me with that, okay?
As I understand it, the motion is to approve option 1, A through F, with the proviso that should the property transition from housing to any other use within the next 5 years, that the purchaser would have to then pay the connection fee.
Or the owner, if it was
Or
converted.
the owner.
Mhm.
Commissioner Denson.
I just wanted to ask a question, because you said, Commissioner Thornton, you said it's just if it was used for housing. Can we have it where it's used for affordable housing? Can we have that?
Well, it's already grandfathered in as a mobile home park. And so what we had discussed was it continuing as a mobile home park for 5 years. And it's doubtful that it would change very substantially well, it couldn't change from that use without the mayor and commission approving it.
Okay, so we're actually not only keeping it at housing, but saying it's going to continue the same use grandfathered in as a mobile home park specifically.
Yes, which is
Okay.
grandfather.
Okay.
Commissioner Neesmith.
Just for clarification, I mean, if somebody else bought it and built something else, wouldn't they be reconnecting anyway? Because these are pipes coming from mobile homes into our sewer system. Wouldn't they, since it wouldn't be the mobile homes, it would be something else, wouldn't they have to pay connection fees on the new plats?
That's a technical question. I don't know the answer to that. That's the public utility.
I mean, I have no problem with this motion, but I just want to understand. I'm not quite sure it's necessary.
Well, I guess my thought is we're doing the installation, we're doing that
No.
for free, right?
No,
Who's paying it?
they are.
Oh,
We're
they
just-
are?
We're just waiving the fees.
That's what I'm talking about.
We're just waiving the fee to connect. They still have to connect.
They're paying for the
They're
pipe.
paying for the pipes and the connection, the work. We're just waiving the fee.
Okay.
To tap into.
To tap into our sewage
So
system.
then if this is just a waiving of the fee for
For connecting.
the connect, so there is no cost except, from,
No,
Help.
we're not spending any money. We're just waiving a fee.
okay. Well, let me read back again. Attorney Berryman, could you please give me
Frankie?
clarification? Because that was my only concern. And I think I did ask when we talked if the owners were in agreement with this already, and I think you did read a letter to me.
Letters were sent to both owners, and Mr. Stevens has actually discussed with one, and you might want to ask him to talk about that one. I don't know that he's gotten a response from the other one. But I think the way it's proposed by Public Utilities is, and these are substantial connections fees, they're capital pre-collection costs is what those fees are. And when Assistant Manager Johnson sent out his report, he had what those amounts would be in there for each one of the parks.
Well, the concept of a connection fee is that you are buying into the utility. So you're purchasing a portion of the utility, and then you pay operationally for whatever your use of that is. And because this is affordable housing, and it would create a hardship for these folks to come onto the system, probably prevent them from being able to do that, and recognizing that this is an environmental benefit to all. That's
that part I got.
Yes, ma'am. That's the principle behind that. We've got a sewer line that's close to there. We would give them some other benefits, like we would help smoke test their lines for so long, because obviously the more rainwater is getting in the sewer lines is going to be more that they're going to have to pay. I don't think that there's a huge capital investment here, other than
By us.
them having to repair theirs, which only benefits them from having to pay future, or paying additional sewage fees.
And I think that was my question when I talked to Attorney Berryman. The owners of both properties have been contacted. They're in agreement with this ordinance.
They've both been given the opportunity to respond. We've heard from one, but they were favorable towards it and appreciated that there was some consideration being given to this.
Okay, so again, when we vote for this, I'm going to assume when I leave here that there's an agreement between the local government and the owners. That's where I'm trying to get to. And you're telling me you only heard from one.
Yes, ma'am.
So how are we voting for two?
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, if we pass this, are the owners obligated to connect?
No.
No, so they can choose not to.
And, okay, all right, that's what I'm trying to say. That's where I'm trying to get to. If they haven't, I thought that, I would have assumed that the owners would have already been on board before we had this vote tonight.
Well,
I mean, I just want, it doesn't really change anything, but I would hate to think that we're voting on something that is not going to happen.
We're going to come back to you with the specific agreement for approval. But what this does is you're changing the ordinance, not just for these two, but for other similar type things where there's an economic development or environmental benefit. This helps us negotiate with folks to bring them on the sewer system. And we will continue to talk to both of them. And once we get to an agreement, then that would come back to y'all. But right now, under the existing ordinance, we can't even have that discussion.
I see.
Well, I mean, we can have the discussion, but it's theoretical.
Yeah.
So once you create the flexibility, we'll pursue a specific agreement, and we can bring that back to
We're amending an
you.
ordinance here. We're not just facilitating these particular people.
Well,
I think Bill had an input.
I just heard from Mr. Stevens, Frank Stevens, and he said that there would not be a second connection fee. Once the connection fee is paid, it goes with the property. So if there wasn't something in there, the property owner could take advantage of this and then immediately convert it to some other use.
Okay.
And so that's why the clawback has some importance.
Okay. With you,
So does everybody understand?
I just got.
And I'll second.
I just got a question about repeat the 5-year again.
The way this was drafted, it was approve paragraphs, option 1, A through F, and add paragraph G, authorize the manager with the approval of the mayor to negotiate an agreement with the park owners that will require payment of the full sewer connection fee if the property is not consistently and legally operated as a mobile home park for 5 years following connection to the ACC Gov sewer.
I'm confused now. Yes. I thought we were amending an ordinance, but this is talking about an agreement.
Yeah.
I would think that language needs to be in the ordinance.
We would negotiate the agreement, bring it back for your approval.
But don't we want the ordinance to have this term in it?
Well, you could have other situations. I mean, the ordinance is drafted even to cover things like economic development, affordable housing.
Yeah.
So you could have different situations. It might not be a mobile home park, it might be.
And we would
some other
negotiate
issue.
every situation?
Yeah.
If you're going to waive these substantial fees, I think that's recommended.
Right, okay.
You should be aware of it. I mean, it's not asking administratively to do it. It just opens up the possibility if we can find, some benefit for both parties, which I think you might agree in this case it does.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I'm just curious, why 5? Why
Yeah.
not 10 or 15 years? Has there been,
That's purely a,
5 is not that
that's a
long.
political decision that y'all could make.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that that term be 10 years.
So you're going to change your motion?
Barely get it out the first time.
Just say 10 years or something.
10 years.
Okay.
Going once.
Who's the second?
Yep.
All right,
Fine
both
with
the motion creator, Commissioner Thornton, and the second, Commissioner Denson, are amenable to 10 years. Any other? Yes.
I did have some questions, and this might probably require some research, but so both of these entities have the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permits in place for those pools. Is there any way for us to, I guess this would be when we're negotiating this, but to have those permits no longer exist as part of this agreement? Because I basically just don't want it, them to somehow, for whatever reason, go back to using this. Part of the reason we're doing this is so that we get rid of this pollutant discharge that's happening there. And my follow-up question to that is, what is going to happen to these pools now? Are these entities still I know one of these is paying $700 to a service to keep the upkeep on this. We don't know what the other entity is doing, which is kind of concerning. But what I would like to know, what is the proper way that these things are cleaned? I just don't want these things sitting there getting worse, and especially if they get worse because nobody's paying attention to them.
Well, we would expect that they would be, we would work with the Environmental Protection Division, which has purview over this, that they would be decommissioned. We understand EPD is not interested in seeing these continue to operate for those reasons.
They have a process for that.
So we'd work through EPD to make sure it was done the correct way.
Okay, and we would, and with that process, the permits would be revoked?
Now that I'd have to figure it out. I mean, there'd be no reason for them to continue to hold them, but
Yeah.
they're, as a permit holder, they have certain privileges and rights, whatever, and so I'd have to run that down, but I can.
Okay.
All right, there we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. And we're going to move on to item number 18, for which you have a slight revision in a commission-defined option presented from Commissioner Herod across the Great Sea at your place. He's at a very different sidewalk cafe than the one contemplated in this ordinance, Paris, France. Anyone like to kick off conversation? Commissioner Denson.
Yeah, I sat through the Government Operations Committee meetings for this, and I think this ordinance takes some great steps for us to have clarity for how these sidewalk cafes are going to be set up, what their size is going to be, specifically starting on Clayton Street, but also taking some action on some of the safety concerns around this, safety concerns to the public surrounding broken beer bottles, specifically broken beer bottles. And so Commissioner Herod has made the proposal that we change and make it a little more specific, so it's bottles under 750 milliliters, so that we can still allow wine bottles to be used in the restaurant, sidewalk cafes, Because we did hear from Solid Waste Services, which was having issues with broken bottles and bags, which was dangerous to our county workers, and also heard from the police department of where the real danger was happening, whether it be with fights or simply broken bottles on sidewalks. And those things were happening specifically with mainly beer bottles. So this language changes it to tackle that issue while still allowing people who are going to be eating at restaurant cafes to be able to enjoy a nice glass of Merlot.
Any other input? I've got a motion from Commissioner Hamby.
I'll second.
All right, and a second from Commissioner Neesmith. Can you read the ordinance, Attorney Berryman?
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County.
Any opposed? All right, 19 carries, excuse me. All right, item number 20 is the Athens in Motion Commission, and should see in your packet or online a commission-defined option that cleans up some of the language and processes from Commissioner Harrod and Commissioner Link. Commissioner Link, do you want to kick off the conversation?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm really excited to see this commission get appointed, and I'm hoping that some of their work will help make our jobs quite a bit easier when it comes to some of the debates we have about our bike and pedestrian infrastructure. Commissioner Harrod had some wording issues that you'll see in the commission-defined option tract document. We had some concerns about the way the commission was appointed. We felt that the appointees should go through this body like they do normal board and commission appointments, and also that the partner entities should be able to choose their own appointees. The University of Georgia and the Greenway, is the Greenway that's the other entity? And also, I wanted to make sure that there were explicit references to access to transit and other amenities, that is constantly kept in mind in all these projects, that these pedestrian and bike infrastructures always consider access to transit, employment centers, and major public services and amenities, because you have to get to a bus stop some way, and usually you're walking or riding your bike, because most of our buses have bike racks on them. And I also wanted to make sure that the Clarke County School District was included in the language, because they do have their Safe Routes to School program, and that's a significant partnership and means of getting that pedestrian infrastructure. So I wanted to make sure that they were included in the language, so that we're constantly referring to the school district's plans and our Safe Routes to School program when we install new pedestrian and bike infrastructure. So with that, I will move that we approve this.
I'll second that.
So there's a motion for the commission-defined option, a second from Commissioner Hamby. Commissioner Neesmith.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment, and that is in section 1 where you said with consideration for access to transit, employment centers, and major public services and amenities, I'd like to add, and the recommendation of transit studies. The recommendation of transportation studies.
I will adopt, yes, I will agree to that
you.
friendly amendment.
I'm fine with that, too.
Commissioner Hamby, also good with a friendly amendment. Any other commission input on this item? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, all opposed, please indicate. All right, motion carries. Do want to let everybody in the room and everybody watching on TV or your digital device know that these positions that now are going to exist for our Athens in Motion Citizen Committee are going to be advertised this week, and the deadline for initial submittal will be Monday, June 17th. So folks have a couple of weeks to apply for these positions. It's going to be a good group, I know. All right, moving forward with our agenda, we have a series of lease agreements, and we have commission-defined options for each of these, beginning with item number 21, the lease agreement with the East Athens Development Corporation. Would anyone like to kick off discussion? Commissioner Parker, it's in your district.
Mayor. Yes, this is my district. And so, as a little background on our previous discussions at the agenda-setting session, it was brought to our attention that over the last 20 years, a number of local organizations that serve mostly low-income and African-American communities have been paying thousands times the rent or the annual maintenance fee and assessment that other organizations such as the Junior League of Athens, the Athens-Clarke Heritage Foundation, the Town and Gown Players have been paying as nonprofits to rent Athens-Clarke County buildings. And so as an issue of equity, myself, Commissioner Wright, and Commissioner Thornton banded together to amend the lease agreements that were brought before us to adopt a 1-year rent payment for each of these organizations, the East Athens Development Corporation, Athens Tutorial Program, the Athens-Clarke County Health Department, and the Athens Neighborhood Health Center for these facilities until a comprehensive assessment of the county's leasing policy was complete. I'd like to make a note, however, that at, I think, 4:42 this afternoon, I received an email from the chair of the Athens Neighborhood Health Center requesting that their rent not be decreased from $1,300 a month. With that being said, given the timeline in which I received this request, I don't see the harm in going ahead and approving this CDO to give them time to make up for the $312,000 they've spent over the last 20 years on rent that other organizations haven't had to pay while we do this reassessment. And if they'd still like to keep their rent at the same amount of at a future point in time, we have time to talk about that. So with that being said, I would like to move that we approve the commissioner-defined option by Commissioners Parker, Wright, and Thornton. Second.
Any other commission input?
I'd
Commissioner
like
Neesmith.
clarification on the ticking clock while we work on our policies. Is it $1 for a year or until we develop a policy, whichever comes first? Or is it for $1 for a year and then we have a new policy?
So I don't know since I don't know how long it will take for the new policy to develop, I'd like to see it for a year, whether or not the policy is developed.
Yeah, I just
in that
wanted
period.
clarification. Yeah, okay.
And the way it's written, it is for a year.
Yeah, but I heard something different. That's why I asked. Okay.
And just to contrast this with past approval of these lease agreements, effectively, these have been on sort of a 5-year lease cycle. And so this provides a narrower window of time. And at the conclusion of this meeting, I'm going to be referring the question to government operations. And I anticipate, based on some conversation with Manager Williams, that it will be well within the conclusion of this fiscal year. And so this time next year, we should have a new substantive common policy for leases of all our Athens-Clarke County properties. So I have a motion from Commissioner Parker, a second from Commissioner Thornton. Any other input? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We're moving on to the similarly situated item number 22, this one with the Athens Neighborhood Health Center.
I motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion for the commission-defined option, second from Commissioner Neesmith. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. All right, motion carries. All right, same as it ever was. Item number 23. This is the lease for the Athens Tutorial Program.
I motion that we approve the commission-defined option.
I second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Parker, a second from Commissioner Davenport. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that motion carries. And then finally, our last lease agreement is with the Clarke County Health Department of the Miriam Community Service Center, number 24.
I motion that we approve the commission-defined option.
I second.
All right, we have for item number 24, a motion from Commissioner Parker, a second from Commissioner Thornton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. All right, motion carries. All right, we are moving on to what I think all of us would describe as the most consequential thing we do every year, which is adoption of our FY20 operating and capital budget and establishment of 2019 property tax rates and other purposes. Any commissioner like to tie a bow around this item?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Edwards and a second from Commissioner Hamby for our FY20 budget. Any further input?
I'd just like to thank the Mayor and Commission for supporting the amendment that I put forward to create pedestrian safety infrastructure on Riverbend Parkway, where that pedestrian unfortunately lost his life recently. Thank you.
Commissioner Link.
I just want to point out that we are including $4 million in a prosperity package that will hopefully do a lot to make some headway on our poverty issue. And I look forward to hammering out the details of that in the coming weeks.
Commissioner Parker.
I would also like to thank, lots of thank yous going out. A lot of people have worked hard on this. I'd like to thank the manager's office for their help in rewording the language around some investments we'd like to make in our inmates. We're still working through with folks from the State Corrections Office how best to implement a system of paying folks for their labor who work within our local corrections facility. And so thank you for that hard work.
Commissioner Denson.
I want to say, some exciting things in this budget. I think that we're taking some bold steps, including the prosperity package. And thank you to Commissioner Hamby, Commissioner Thornton for bringing that idea forward. Getting to have fare, free public transit for seniors and disabled Athenians and county workers. Very excited about that. And doubling our mental health team's capacity with the police department. Some very good things happening there. And also want to back up Commissioner Parker on that. Very excited about us taking some steps, and appreciate the flexibility with the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Neesmith for helping out also, along with the manager's office, to make sure that we can leave room in the budget so that we can make sure that we are having a compensation stipend package for inmates. Once I am confident that we are going to be able to work hand in hand with the corrections department to make that happen. And it's going to be this budget's a lot of exciting something for everybody. And I also want to thank personally Manager Williams for coming out. We had a town hall in District 5 last week on the budget. Had a lot of people come out, and Manager Williams gave a fantastic presentation on the budget process and the budget itself. And I think it was a lot of understanding with a lot of the constituents. And a lot of people told me they're very excited about these things that are there too.
Commissioner Neesmith.
I want to say this has been the most interesting budget process that I've been involved with, and it's because a lot of boxes, people are thinking outside the box. And, the amount of education and discussion that we had together was really beneficial and kind of fun. Mayor, you did Blaine, you did an excellent job at starting the process off with a proposed budget. Mayor, you did a great job of listening to all of us and doing all that you could and shining things up real nice. And I want to thank all of you for putting together such a great process and having such great conversations.
I'll say before the vote, I'm similarly appreciative of certainly members of the public, many of whom are in the audience tonight, and many of whom I know are watching on a regular basis, for their input over many years to kind of produce the policies and concepts that are embodied in this budget. And certainly everybody here behind the rail, management, the attorney, certainly the operational analysis auditor, who kind of shines a light on things that we can improve, Clerk Spratlin keeping us on point, and members of the commission who I think had a great introductory year to the budget on kind of a short time frame. And so the things that are exciting to me now, I think, are going to be even more exciting to me, since we're going to be having ongoing conversations about our budget and policy priorities. And so we'll be even earlier teed up for this as we look forward to 2021. So with that, we have a motion and a second. I believe the motion was from Commissioner Edwards. The second was from Commissioner Hamby, and Attorney Berryman is going to read the ordinance.
Yes. An ordinance to provide for the raising of revenues and the appropriation of funds for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia for the fiscal year 2020, beginning July 1, 2019, and ending June 30, 2020, to provide for the operations of government departments, boards, agencies, elected offices, and other governmental activities, to provide for the level of personnel authorized for the various departments and agencies, to provide for a capital budget, to establish 2019 property tax rates, to establish compensation for the charter officers, to establish rates and structure of fiscal year 2020 health insurance programs, and to repeal conflicting ordinances, to provide effective dates and for other purposes. And then one more, an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to water and sewer rates and for other purposes.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We have a budget for fiscal 2020. Yeah. Excellent. All right, we We have some new business that we need to consider under suspension of rules. I'll entertain a motion for suspension of rules.
So moved.
I second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Neesmith, a second from Commissioner Parker. You should have an item at your place regarding relocation of a previously approved mural that was initially scheduled for a different location. Folks, I'll say, on staff worked very hard to be kind of flexible to make this modification possible. And so I'm glad to have that work underway as we speak, literally right here on this gorgeous Tuesday evening.
Guess
And
we better approve it, huh?
so I would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move that we approve, and I want to thank the mayor and the manager and the attorney and all the staff that did bend over backwards to make sure this project moves forward. It's a really exciting project, and you can go right around the corner and check it out in progress right now.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Neesmith. Any further discussion?
I'll say just a word. I'd like for this to, as this process was unfolding, I sort of had deja vu with a similar instance that I was involved with trying to get a publicly funded mural installed on a piece of private property. I know that this mural originally was not going to go on private property, but the interaction with private property is perilous for the installation of public art. So let's learn from this instance and really focus on investing our public art dollars in public facilities so that we don't run into these conflicts again, because I've seen it time and time again with public art going and interacting with private property. It's just a fraught situation. So,
And I think it's fair to say that the ACAC has learned some lessons from this process as well.
I wanted to thank them, honestly,
Yes.
for their hard work, so thank you all.
All right. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. The work may continue, if you had any doubt.
Who was going to tell them to stop?
All right. All right, we have Planning Director Brad Griffin, who's going to come join us for two items. Which item was this for, Attorney Berryman? Oh,
Okay.
There was an additional
There was
ordinance.
an additional, I'm sorry.
For the budget.
An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to land development, user fees, and for other purposes.
All right.
To adopt.
I'll second.
All right, so motion from Commissioner Neesmith, second from Commissioner Link to confirm. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, with no doubt whatsoever, the budget carries. All right, we have separate public input opportunities for planning and zoning items. The first one of these is item number 27 at 664 Hancock Industrial Way. Anyone may approach the podium and speak for 3 minutes. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the light will turn yellow, and then when your time is up, it will turn red. Would anyone like to speak to item number 27?
Hi, good evening. I'm Paula Loniak, and I live in Oglethorpe County. I first saw this, I guess, maybe a month or so ago, this development idea, and I got excited because I saw, over 18 acres, and it's going to be RV. So I contacted, I believe it was Mr. Carter, Jeff Carter, and on the phone, and I asked him about it, and I asked if there would be a possibility of putting some tiny houses as well as RVs on it, and I'm sure he told me yes. And then he said, I'll get you in touch with so-and-so, Steve somebody, I think. He's the person you need to talk to. And I never heard from anybody again, and then it was like the whole thing had disappeared. It wasn't going to happen. And I think I guess either maybe lied to is a little too strong, but misled about their intentions, and it pissed me off. I hate when people lie to me, and I don't trust people that lie to me, and I don't understand what the approve with conditions means for the Planning Commission recommendation. I'd like that explained a little bit and why it was unanimous. I just don't I just don't like people lying to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Loniak.
Good evening. I'm Mike McCleary, an attorney with Fortson Bentley and Griffin, 2500 Daniels Bridge Road, Athens. I have, our firm represents the developer and owner, Bulldog Estates, LLC. We have with us tonight Mr. Steve Smith, who's the principal manager of that LLC. We also have with us a representative from Carter Engineering, Mr. Jesse West, just in case there are any technical questions that anyone has. They're here to address those. Certainly want to first off take time to express our appreciation for the planning staff and their assistance as we have worked through this through a few iterations of our original plan. I think in collaboration with them, we've come up with a great plan for this property that will serve as a good buffer between existing residential use and some existing light industrial use in the area. We feel that this property is uniquely situated near the perimeter of the industrial park, so its use will not interfere with any ongoing efforts to develop industrial properties. In addition, this site is 18 acres, but because of some topographical challenges, some environmental challenges due to water that runs through the property, it's really not suitable for industrial development. We feel like our use makes great use of this property because of the unique nature of the RV park. We did have an opportunity to listen to your comments during your agenda setting. I wanted to just address a couple of those. I know there were some questions regarding outreach with neighboring owners, and I want to assure Mayor and Commission that Mr. Smith went above and beyond in his outreach to not just the industrial park owners, but the residential owners in the nearby and the adjacent mobile home park, going door to door to engage with those residents there. He also held a community town hall to get input and to share ideas with those residents, several of whom attended. We have a few of those residents here tonight who will be hopefully talking on our behalf. We want to assure Mayor and Commission that Mr. Smith and Bulldog Estates plan to be good neighbors and develop the property accordingly. Also got the sense from your discussions that some members may not be familiar with how the RV park works, or the whole idea of the concept, which is a little different. My firm has represented Bulldog Park for several years. Mr. Smith has been a resident of Bulldog Park, so if we can answer any questions or clarify anything regarding how the RV park works, we're here to do that as well.
Thank you, Mr. McCleary.
Thank you.
How you doing, Mayor Gertz and the commission? My name is Steve Smith, and 531 Gold Shore Lane. I live in Canton, Georgia, 30144. My family's from Snellville, Georgia, and Bogart. But I would like to say that I've owned property in the Clarke County for 10 years, paid taxes on that property for 10 years, and now I own 18 acres across the street, which we're talking about today. So I do consider myself an Athens community. I have a lot invested in Athens. I love Athens. My family loves Athens. And I can promise you we're going to do everything we can to make this property Bulldog Park 2.0. I've been over there for 10 years. I've listened to a little bit of upgrades that they could have had. We've got guard shacks. We've got camera systems that give you real-time cameras so people can view on their phone their RV. And this property's got a little challenge right through the middle of it being the wetland, but we're going to make it really pretty and a green space. And so I'm open to any kind of questions that, like my attorney said, Mike, I went above and above all I could do as far as reaching out to the residents. I've gone door to door. I've listened to their concerns. Some of their concerns are, the privacy fence, got their input, their security system, the sanitation. And I really didn't find anybody that wasn't in favor of the Bulldog Park, or I'm sorry, the Bulldog Estates, once they're asked the question, would you rather have an RV park here or would you rather have an industrial facility? That's your two questions. And so with the land not being conducive to an industrial facility, I think the planning department all agreed unanimously that this was a good transition, with Harmony Homes being right behind me versus Bulldog Park being right across the street and so forth. So if you have any questions, I'll open up the rest of my time for anything like that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay.
Other input on item number 27? Good evening.
Hi, everybody. My name is Latricia Allen. I live at 705 Spring Valley Road, Lot 186. I am for the RV park for two reasons. Sorry, that's my son, Declan. I am currently in the process of opening up a home daycare, and industrial places bring rats, rodents, bugs, stuff like that. I have to legally let my kids out for 2 hours a day if the weather permits. They have to take a 2-hour nap. That needs to be quiet. Most industrial places are not quiet. The second reason I'm for it is because of economic growth. I feel like we're left out out there on that east side of Athens. I feel like nobody really cares about us out there. Like, we don't have anything out there. A lot of us are working class. A lot of people out there don't have cars. So that park, I think it was like $2.5 million is what he's investing in it. So at the very least, he has to make $2.5 million back. You don't do that by, like, renting spaces cheap. So they're not cheap. So that's going to bring a different economic class out there to help bring economic growth out there. Because there's a lot of people that live past Walmart out in that area. So I'm for it, if that matters.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Thank you.
Any other input on item number 27?
How you doing? My name is John Labarcia. I live at 705 Spring Valley Road. I work for the mobile home park adjacent to the Bulldog Estates. I think personally that it's going to be an excellent idea to have that Bulldog Estates, because we have a lot of people in the park who don't have vehicles, like Teresa said. It's going to create jobs for some of those people. I've spoke to some of the people who are going to border the RV park, and they're all for it, especially with the privacy fence and the way that it's going to give it a good appearance. And anything industrial at this point would not be in anybody's favor in that area. I think that what he's trying to do with the estates is an excellent idea, and I'm all for it. And there's several people in the park who are as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologize, sir. Can you spell your last name just for the record, so I have that?
Labossiere.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Any other input on item number 27?
Hello, I'm here to speak for the Bulldog Estates Park. My name is John Hudgens. I live at 140 Oakmont Court in Winterville, and I'm the owner of the Hallmark Mobile Home Community, which shares about 2,000 feet of property border with the proposed development. I'm excited that this caliber of development is coming to our neighborhood. I have owned the Hallmark Park for just over 20 years. And during those 20 years, this 18-acre tract has stayed the same, which is jungle. This development will be quite an economic boost for this part of the county. And it'll serve as a catalyst for further development in this area. Developments bring construction jobs and then permanent jobs. Perhaps some of our 279 families in Hallmark will find one of those permanent jobs. And the good thing is that they're next door. You can walk to work. Another issue is the taxes. Estimated to be around $85,000 a year that this development will bring Clarke County, compared to very little currently. I've talked to a lot of our residents. I've not been able to see anything detrimental about the approval of this RV park. I don't see any way it's detrimental to the livelihood of our residents, 279 families. So it's with pleasure that I speak for all of our families by saying, welcome to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hudgens. Any other input on item number 27? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the commission for conversation, and this in Commissioner Parker's district.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, at our last meeting, we had a lot of concerns about this development, primarily living wage job creation, or would this development contribute to the creation of more service sector jobs, which you know to be low wage paying, considering a recreational use for this area, given the housing crisis that we're experiencing in our city. And yeah, it just wasn't really clear how this would benefit the community. Though in talking to Brad Griffin and Manager Williams and others in the aftermath of that meeting, we have found that it should serve as a good buffer between the nearby mobile home park and the industrial area. That industrial development for this parcel could be disruptive for the residents living in that nearby mobile home park. And I'm heartened to hear that the developers are interested in helping support the creation of jobs at a living wage, working with Miss Allen, I believe it was, who's trying to open the home daycare center. So those are some benefits that I think we were looking for. That being said, as Mrs. Loniak kind of exemplified when she came forward, she spoke in favor of this development at the Planning Commission meeting in the hopes that there would be tiny homes here, and was given a positive response that, yeah, we can work that out, we can do that, let me talk to someone about it, and nothing ever materialized. And so I just want to make sure that that similar thing does not happen with this development, that we get promises that are later not kept. And so I am going to move that we hold this project so that the developers can have time to formalize what they see to be some of these community benefits that they're working out with nearby residents and employers, and bringing that back to us just so that we can have the full information available when we move to approve.
I'll second that, and I have some concerns about the project and approving a special use permit, giving up some valuable industrial and commercial land for a residential use that isn't going to benefit residents of Athens, Georgia, when we do have a housing crisis and we do have a real need for the kind of housing that could accommodate tiny homes or these smaller scale mobile homes. And I am concerned about the growth in our industrial corridor and how this could possibly scare some of that away. We do, have hopes to expand our recycling center, which is right across the street. The name of this corridor is Hancock Industrial Way. It's intended to be an industrial corridor, but it does allow for other commercial uses, medical centers or office or whatever. So that there are other things that could be done with this property that would not necessarily impact the wetlands and the streams. Smaller scale development that would also bring many jobs, not just I can't imagine that an RV park would employ more than a couple of people. It looks like they just have a gatehouse. So I would like to see this put on hold so there can be more discussion of what is the trade-off here, in giving up this valuable industrial property for what is a residential use that is only a handful of weekends a year from folks who don't even live in the community. What is the give and take, and what are which is the better use of this land? And I just would like to see that discussion pan out to make sure that there is a community benefit.
Commissioner Neesmith.
We have plenty of industrial land. If somebody wants to build a factory in our town, this might be one of the worst pieces that we have because of the creek that runs through the middle of it. As far as tiny homes is concerned, this is condominium ownership. I don't know how you would put tiny homes on lots that you had to buy. This is recreational. This is for people to come visit our town and spend their money. I can't understand taking an opportunity like this and trying to bend it in a way that is not on the table. It's not something being discussed. It's not an option. What we have in front of us is a way to use this property to generate tax revenue and bring tourists to town. So I don't know what the point is in putting it on hold. I've never seen us take a special use permit and say, oh, you have to provide employment. And this is not even a rezoning. This is a special use permit in an EI zone. So this is I don't think that's reasonable.
Commissioner Parker.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that I knowing the compatible uses for this property, wasn't expecting tiny homes myself. I figured out that probably wasn't going to work out. But this pattern of getting promises from developers that don't materialize is one that we need to kind of start putting our foot down about, especially if it's, in this case, people are reaching out to offer them. So these are actually things that are on the table, that are up for discussion. And so if we want to talk about it, let's talk about it. So that's what I am aiming to do in giving us a little more time to have discussion. And it was recommended to me that we be a little more specific about what some of those things could be, like how many jobs created, how will the child care provider benefit in terms of increased hours or pay for people working there? What could the positive economic impact be in this area, as the gentleman from Landmark was hoping for? So I think just getting a clear picture of what that might be could be beneficial both for the people who live there and for us.
Not at this point. Apologize. Commissioner Neesmith.
A citizen asking a question of a developer outside of the Planning Commission, or not suggesting that the Planning Commission put this condition on the special use permit, I don't consider that an unfulfilled promise. If I had been called as a commissioner by that citizen, I could have explained that this is not a rezoning. This is not for housing. This is not housing. This is an RV park. You can't put a tiny home in an RV park. The business model is not for tiny homes. That issue is just completely off the table. It always was, and probably always will be. As far as them making promises about employment and stuff, we're not putting together an economic development package here and giving them money to do a development. We're merely giving them a special use permit so that they can use this land in a very productive way, I think, compared to what it's being used now, and probably wouldn't change for many, many, many years. So I don't see the point. I think we need to let this developer go forward with his project. It does no harm, and you're right. It probably isn't going to provide a lot of employment other than some cleaning and some guards. So why do we want to hold it up, waiting for something that is really not that significant?
Commissioner Hamby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I certainly respect what Commissioner Neesmith is saying, but I don't really see any harm in holding it for 30 days for the discussion. There's been plenty of special use permits that come before us that we have, just to make sure that the conditions that are placed in the permit are what we all are aware of. So I don't see any harm in 30 days holding
There's
this.
Commissioner Denson.
I just wanted to make a real quick comment because there was a question, and I think it's good for us to address this so we can be educating the community that's watching this. There's a question about what it meant to be recommended, approved with conditions, and I just wanted to educate on that the Planning Commission can do that, and if you pull up the full agenda item, there's a pink slip that's from the Planning Commission, and they have the recommendation to approve or disapprove. But what they've done here is created 4 conditions that must be in place for this approval to carry forward. And if you pull up that full agenda item, you can see all those. I see 4, but that's fine.
Next page.
Okay.
All right, so I have a motion on the table to hold for one cycle. Attorney
Just to
Behrman.
clarify, under the procedural rules for zoning items, this would be a hold for 40 days, so it would come back in July.
Thank you.
And one more clarification, just.
Go ahead.
There were 5 on the pink sheet. The Planning Commission did not recommend condition number 1. It came to you as if they did. Your ordinances removed it, and they gave them back those 8 lots. So, and I think you received an email from us last week clarifying that, but easy to understand how that confusion, that was our fault.
So they didn't remove the 8 RV spaces?
We recommended to them that the 8 along the industrial property be removed, and they allowed them to keep them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a roll call.
Yes.
Flink,
Yes.
Denson,
Yes.
Naismith,
No.
Edwards,
Yes.
Thornton,
Yes.
Hamby,
Yes.
Davenport.
Yes.
7 yes, 1 no.
All right, there's an ordinance from Commissioner
Just for the
Behrman.
record. An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to special use approval of an RV park in the EI Employment Industrial District for a parcel of land located at 664 Hancock Industrial Way, comprising approximately 18.05 acres and for other purposes.
All right, so we will see this again on July 2nd. All right, we are moving forward to item number 28. Again, as this is a zoning item, there's the opportunity for 3 minutes of public input on this item. If anybody would like to provide that input, please come on down.
Hi, I'm Carl Martin. I'm the petitioner requesting this, and I said in the agenda-setting meeting, basically, everything I think I need to say, so just want to let you know I'm here in support of this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. Any other public input on item number 28? All right, seeing none, we'll come behind the rail, and this is in Commissioner Link's district.
Yeah, this is just kind of catching up an existing property with code. So I want to go ahead and approve a motion that we approve this.
Second.
Any other commissioner input? Ordinance from Attorney Berryman.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to modifying a planned development for a parcel of land located in the CDWEPD Commercial Downtown West End Downtown Design Area Planned Development District and located at 393 North Finley Street and for other purposes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, seeing none, motion carries. All right, we are now moving forward to our general citizen input period. So if those who are here with us tonight would like to speak to any item not on the agenda or any item pertaining to Athens-Clarke County, now is that time, so you have the same 3-minute opportunity.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I want to congratulate you all for taking bold steps to make Athens 100% renewable. Thank you. I've been up here preaching about it for a long time, and now I'm preaching to the choir, and that's a beautiful thing. Also, I'd like to, on that note, talk about the future and climate and how we need to think about the future and what it's going to be like in 10 years if we don't reduce our greenhouse gas emissions drastically. Because all the science says that there's going to be no bread on this shelf at some point, and it's not that far in the future. We see all this flooding that's happening. through the middle of the country. We're losing ability to grow corn. There's pigs on top of roofs because the flooding. There's an Air Force base that was flooded. There's major stuff happening, and it's happening all around the world. It's not even, for something to happen here is kind of dramatic because we kind of are sheltered in a sense, and especially here in Georgia, but we just had a week of really high temperatures and no rain. And these droughts can only get worse. And I know it's nothing nobody likes to hear about it, but around the world, there's kids walking out of school every Friday to protest for climate because they feel like if they don't have a future, why are they going to school? So they're putting pressure on their politicians to take action and to live up to at least to their agreement in the Paris Accord. So I think one thing that we can do here as citizens is, and as mayor and commission, is push to get what our goals are for a renewable energy future to come along a little easier. And one way to do that is to put pressure on the Public Service Commission, because they're the ones who regulate Georgia Power and the other power companies in the state. And right now, the next and last hearing for Georgia Power and the Public Service Commission, their IRP, is on June 8th, a week from today. And if you want to write a letter to them, if you want to call up Tim Eccles and tell them to do the right thing. That would be good. And, if we got Georgia Power to give us net metering, so what you get charged, they pay you to have solar, that would be huge. And this is something that we can put pressure on them to do. But we've only got a short window, and then we don't get to mess with it again for 3 years. So Public Service Commission, the meeting is on June the 11th. It's a week from today, and if you want to find out more information about it, just contact me, athenscompost@gmail.com, or see our Georgia Climate Change Coalition Facebook page. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your work. My name is Nathan Wasserman. I live at 200 Old Princeton Road, Athens, Georgia. Just want to echo what Mark said. I think that's great. We're in dire straits with our environment. We keep polluting. If we don't do anything about it, we're all going to die. That being said, I'd like to talk about some people that are in dire straits as well. As you may know, Athens has a 38% poverty rate. That really doesn't sit right with me. And I think one way that we can address this issue is by putting pressure on the university over there to create programs for the students to give back to the community, to get involved in the community, to cooperate with our local government and with our public services, just so that we can establish a lasting connection between the I guess you would the students and the people that live here, the people that work at the university. University pays very, very low wages for their service workers, and I think as the mayor and commission, it's your duty to look after the citizens. It's your duty to fight for their liberty, their freedom. And if you don't have economic options, you can't do anything in this country. It's just not feasible. If you can't pay your bills, you can't keep the lights on. If you can't go to the grocery store because you don't have money, how can you, feed your kids? How can you feed yourself? So my point is putting pressure on the university to pay fair wages, $15 an hour for all employees that are not salaried, I guess you would say. $15 an hour for those employees, $15 an hour for those employees. Putting pressure on the university to do that, as well as putting pressure on the university to study the history of slavery in Athens, in Georgia, in the United States, because if we are not allowed to study these white institutions, then we're not able to figure out how we can destroy white supremacy, how we can provide upward economic mobility for all people, how we can continue to grow in spirit and grow together as a community. So, yeah, put some pressure on them. I'll help you do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wasserman.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sam Raffle. I reside at 230 Spalding Circle in Athens, Georgia. Among other things, I'm the director of the Athens for Everyone EMS Response Initiative. Mr. Gadd and I went to Atlanta last Friday to meet with the chairman of the House Industry and Labor Committee, Bill Werkheiser, the chairman of the Senate Ethics Committee, Kay Kirkpatrick, and the head of the Georgia Ambulance Transparency Project, Julianne Thompson, and many of the top officials and legal counsel for the Georgia Department of Public Health. We had far-reaching discussions about EMS, and the meeting was cordial and forward-moving. One of the issues that came up was our local EMS Oversight Committee and the fact that these public safety meetings were hampered by NDAs or non-disclosure agreements and not open to the public. Even with attorneys in the room, it was not clear if this was legal or not. And we were referred to the Attorney General, Chris Carr, for clarification. We hope to meet with him soon. However, I would simply say, legal or not, these closed meetings are, in my opinion, very troubling and antithetical to the idea of transparency and public safety. And it underscores even more the need for our 911 Communications Center to take over all 911 communication in Athens-Clarke County. It is a recommended option of the Athens-Clarke County Police Department, and we strongly support it. It would improve efficiency, increase accountability, and save lives. Additionally, I would like to reaffirm our support for the upgrade in our first fire response to that of advanced life support or paramedic level. We would like to see this explored as part of a 5-year plan. The current program of increasing the number of AEMTs is certainly an important and appreciated first step in this process. The training would be available from the same people currently training our firefighters, and it's consistent with what Chief Scarborough implemented and administered in Sandy Springs. It was also part of the response of the city of Johns Creek when they faced similar ambulance response issues from their ambulance provider. Johns Creek Fire Department currently has 19 paramedics, 45 EMTs. They have SWAT medics that could go into a school shooting situation with the police. They also have these things called quick response vehicles that can transport critical patients in the event of a significant ambulance delay. They have 2 of those. So there are ideas out there that are worth exploring. Appreciate your consideration on all of these issues, and most especially now the issue of our 911 Communications Center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Raffle.
Do I have to say my name again? My name is Mocha Jasmine Johnson. I live at 2035 Timothy Wood Way. I stayed all this time, so Mr. Bill Berman, on behalf of Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement, I would like to honestly and truly thank you for your service. I know you like playing it safe, but you have always made a way, and you've had an open door policy. Whenever we called, you've taken the time to explain and break things down, and I really appreciate that. Even with item number 3 tonight, we know that there's things that when people see us coming and we want certain things, sometimes people don't open up their minds and try to sit down and have a conversation with us, and you have never turned us away. And honestly, I would like to thank you for your service and for the work that you have done. And the ordinance that passed in 2016, we know things aren't perfect, but every little step makes a difference, so we'd like to thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Good sentiments.
Hey, good evening. My name is Bob Gadd. I live at 134 Milton Road in Winterville. Congratulations, Bill. I bet you're looking forward to that. As a paramedic, there's no greater thrill than saving someone's life. Now you yourselves can be those lifesavers by having ACC Dispatch handle all emergency medical calls. This will create instant transparency, accountability, and efficiency in our EMS system. Please do the right thing and provide the funds to make this much-needed change. By doing so, you will be saving lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gadd.
Joseph Carter. I live at 175 Oglethorpe Avenue. And as we move forward with our 2020 budget, and that comes with it the prosperity package, that we not only rely on our city funds and nonprofits as partners, but that we follow up behind that with both pressure and encouragement to the university to contribute their funds to that as well, to even match it. They are the largest property owner and the largest employer. They also contribute dramatically to our poverty rate. And it is their responsibility as a stakeholder in the city to contribute what they have to the city. And so I want to encourage Mayor and Commission to think of creative ways, like fees in lieu of services, to put the university in a position where they have to contribute in real, concrete, material ways to this community because they're not doing it. And a fee in lieu of services is long overdue. They don't pay taxes. And they need to contribute in ways that are real and long-lasting, because I don't think they're doing it, and there's a lot of people in the city who agree with that. So I want to encourage Mayor and Commission to be bold and break a long-standing pattern of risk averseness to actually tell UGA, you have to contribute because the city is struggling and they tend to keep things to themselves. So just, again, want to encourage Mayor and Commission to put pressure, not just always to just ask, but to say, you need to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Mayor and Commissioners, my name is Fred Smith. I live at 425 Rivermont Road. I'd like to come tonight to also to thank you for your work, but also to invite you to the celebration of the Miriam Moore of her life and the contribution that she made to this community. In 1988, Mrs. Moore became the first African-American female elected to government in this county. And in 1990, after the consolidation, she became the first black female commissioner as well. So she first served on Athens City Council and then later on the unified government. In 1999, you named the community center, the service center, after her, and of course I'm with the Black History Committee, but also the interim director of EADC, and so we want to recognize more of the contribution of persons in East Athens, and so we started with her. I know that Ms. Thornton knew Mrs. Moore very well. She mentored us, and much of what we do today is because of people like her. So please mark your calendars for June 29th at 2 p.m. at the East Athens Community East Athens Development Corporation Community Room for a celebration reception, and we're going to unveil her portrait that is being painted as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon. My name is Shirley Taylor. I live at 448 Little Oak Street. My main concern, one of my main concerns, is the streets on the east side are not getting cleaned up as well. There are trees that's lapping in the road. And, you know, my dad is 96 years old, and I'm speaking on his behalf because when I take him places, he said, I am just so concerned that these trees gonna fall in the street, and then how we gonna get out? And well, I asked someone in 2017, did they have money in the budget to clean the streets and cut the trees? And they told me no. I said, well, what happened to the little sweeper thing? And you remember the little sweeper thing they used to run around in downtown? But they said they only use it for downtown. So I would like to see a schedule. You know, I talked to someone, they said, oh yeah, we'll come and do something. But they did come and they did something. So I would like to see a more of a schedule of the streets in East Athens. And I'm quite sure there's other places, but I live in East Athens. I would like to see anything done that the trees will not fall. And it may be a little thing to some people, and it may be like that's petty, but we do see other streets very clean and trees are cut. So we would like to thank you all for what you do, but and then I would like to know, is there any money to clean the streets and to cut the trees? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Any other public input this evening? All right, we're going to move. Oh, come on down.
I'm going to be nice tonight, and I'm going to abide by the rules. But my name's Diane Allen Jordan, and I live 255 Baker Street. And I just wanted to say I'm a little confused, but I'm thinking that we got what we were asking for in terms of not, okay, all right then, thank you. But thank you very much. And a lot of times when you don't know, you know, you can't do things about items and things. So I do appreciate what you did and the discussion we had. And I look forward to working with you all as we make East Athens the place that it should be and we all want it to be. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. I appreciate it. Any other public input this evening? All right, before we move on to members of the staff and the commissioners of just a few items, I just want to enter into the record 2 appointments to the Athens Housing Authority, a reappointment for 5 years for Charlie Maddox, and then a resident appointment for 1 year for Arlene Stern. I then want to move to 2 committee assignments. As referenced earlier in our conversation about the leases, I'm assigning to the Government Operations Committee development of a consistent leasing policy for ACC properties, considering local community benefit provided by the lessee. And then I'm also assigning to the Citizen Solid Waste Advisory Committee to develop a draft ordinance for presentation to the Mayor and Commission by the end of calendar year 2019, eliminating plastic bags and styrofoam containers at points of purchase, including plans for at least a 12-month phase-in timeline for community-wide education and distribution of alternative items. The committee should engage with retail and restaurant businesses to identify alternatives for their use of these products, and they should also develop a timeline for elimination of these items at events on ACC public property. I now would like to move forward with nominations for charter officers, the municipal court judge, and the administrative hearing officer. This requires a vote. Attorney Berryman?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I nominate for 2-year appointments Blaine Williams as manager, Stephanie Maddox as our Internal Auditor, Ryan Hope as our Municipal Court Judge, and also Ryan Hope as our Administrative Hearing Officer. And I nominate Denny Gallus as the Personnel Hearing Officer for the Unified Government and request that you approve this nomination. So I'd entertain a motion.
Could you also authorize the execution of the contracts for the manager, internal auditor, and judge?
Thank you, Attorney Berryman. And in addition, I request that you approve these nominations and authorize me to execute renewals of their employment agreements. So I'd entertain a motion for the slate.
I move to accept the slate.
Commissioner Neesmith?
I'll second.
All right, second from Commissioner Link. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, now is the time when we have input from senior staff. Anything tonight, Manager Williams?
No, sir.
All right, Attorney Berryman?
I just want to say that I'm proud to have served in this government in a professional capacity for the last 16 years as your attorney. This is the best government anywhere, and it's been my pleasure to work for it. I appreciate all the patience, particularly the patience and support that you and your predecessors have given me over the years. Working with you, the ACC employees, constitutional officers, and citizens of this great community has been rewarding beyond measure. Thank you.
All right. Attorney Berryman has yet another month with us, so we appreciate your homily, but you're not getting out of here yet.
Nope.
But we so much appreciate your time with us. Stephanie?
I have two. Hello. I have two items tonight. I would like to say that I have great pleasure working with you, Bill, and sitting beside you every first Tuesday of the month. It's been enjoyable. And second, I want to share for those that are watching and for us here today that starting this month, our office will be providing an update for our audit plan that is voted by you all every year. So you will see at the very end of our agenda, each month will be our progress towards each of our audits that you voted for. If you ever have any questions about where we are and the status of each audit or any of the audits, just please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Ms. Maddox. All right, now it's time for commissioner input. I'm going to begin with Commissioner Davenport, and we'll go around to Commissioner Hamby.
Always last.
And I got a long list too, so y'all hunker down. I'm going to do a PSA today. Well, first, welcome back, Blaine from Japan. He didn't bring me a gift, so I'm a little upset, but it's all right.
You can turn on the light.
June 29th is the Athens-Clarke County Star Spangled Banner Herald, Star Spangled Banner 4th of July. So just want to do a PSA for the public. It's June 29th, that Saturday, because 4th of July is on a Wednesday or Thursday this year. So please come downtown for that. Hot Corner Festival this weekend. Of course, and AthFest is in 2 weeks. I'd like to welcome Michael Burnett, the new CEO of Piedmont Athens Regional, to Athens-Clarke County, and hopefully he'll do a really good job. I know he'll do a really good job. And I would like to thank the mayor, manager and mayor for rescheduling an emergency medical services discussion, which I'm really interested in, to July 9th. We'll talk about ambulance response time. And just for the people out in the community, we have BAC boards, authorities, and commissions that are due June 7th. Go to accgov.com. The Vision Committee and other committees are, we have spots available. And Michael Thurman will be at the Classic Center this Saturday from 4 to 6 to sign his new book, which I hope a lot of people will be in attendance. But I would like to end by saying we have two great Athens and Clarke County employees who live with us this month. Of course, Bill Berryman and Drew Ressler, and I would like to thank y'all for the little bit of time that I've known y'all, but thank y'all for y'all service. And I know I will see you around town, and hopefully I see Drew Ressler at Braves game. So, all right.
Thanks. Commissioner Parker.
I would also like to thank Attorney Berryman for his service. Tonight actually marks a year that I've been on the commission. And I know that all of you have had to put up with lots from me, maybe none more than Attorney Berryman. So thank you, and thank you all for guiding me through this process. I did not get to get dunked in the tank on Saturday, but if you want to see me do something equally embarrassing, I am rapping on the rooftop on Friday at a benefit for the Boys and Girls Club music program. And so I invite everyone to come through, and that's all.
I also want to thank Bill, Attorney Berryman, for all your hard work. That's a pretty long haul, and you will be greatly missed. And thank you for all the times you've picked up the phone and helped me. And I really appreciate your guidance and your wisdom. And I also want to thank the mayor for putting plastic bags on the agenda. I'm looking forward to seeing that come through. I've been kicking and screaming about that for a long time. So, and I also want to reiterate the concerns about climate change. I feel like we've taken some significant steps here in our own community as a local government in adopting the 100% renewable, in making a real commitment to improving our pedestrian and bike infrastructure and giving folks a serious option for transportation. Also, our buses, eliminating bus fares for elderly folks and county employees and kids. The number 1 and 2 contributors to climate change are transportation and also food. So everybody keep in mind that switching to a meat-free diet or eliminating as much meat as possible from your diet is one of the number 1 things you can do to combat climate change. So make that a conscious effort. And I also hope that, we've made this commitment as a local government, but I hope we can take a good look at our building and design ordinances and help guide development in this community and guide those who are building in this community to also make that commitment.
Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things here. For one, I guess just a question, maybe we can get this answer given back to us, but with the EMS Oversight Committee, it is a little concerning to me to know that those meetings are happening in closed session. The county has seats on that committee?
Yes. 2.
Yeah.
Me and Andy.
Okay, and so I guess I would like to see what legal ways we could possibly change that then if we have seats at that table on that committee to make sure that those meetings are being held legally and open and actually going by the sunshine laws. Do also want to plug another thing. We have so much going on. But for the prosperity package and the budget that we just passed this evening, unless it's been changed, we have a public meeting on June 13th.
June 13th, correct.
June 13th from 4:30 to 8:30, where we'll be actually fleshing out what that package is. That's very important there, so just want to plug that for the public who would like to be there. One other thing, Mayor, I'd like to request that we look into assigning a non-discrimination ordinance, creating a non-discrimination ordinance to committee. We have, I believe, now 5 cities in Georgia who have created this because the state of Georgia lacks one. And I think it's time, again, as I've brought up in the past, that Athens has one here. And with the last thing, I'll just also say thank you to Attorney Berryman. It's been, no matter what, whether I was on the other side of that rail for many years, and poor Bill had to stare at my face right behind him at the podium there. I sat at that desk one time during a work session, and that is so awkward to sit there and have to be just, it is. But you do a great job. You do a great job, keep a straight face, always respectful. But you've always been respectful on that side of it, and for the short period that I've been able to work with you here, it's been also a pleasure. I've been even more impressed by how accessible you've been and how helpful you've been. Every time I've brought something to you, not only have I felt like you're going to help me with it, but that you are excited to help me with it, and it's always been nice, and it's always made it easier for me to come back to you. We'll miss you, so thank you.
Thank you. To clarify, Commissioner Denson, I'm not sure that we're official members. I believe we were invited to come and are notified of meetings because we both were concerned about EMS performance and wanted to know more. And so we're under non-disclosure with them. We had to sign NDAs because, the contract is between the hospitals and the ambulance service, not the government. So that might be one reason. I don't know. The attorneys can tell us that they're not susceptible to the Sunshine Law. But we have learned a lot. I actually, and I hope that they're going to share some stuff with you in July. I've actually gained a lot of confidence in the performance of EMS, especially in conjunction with our fire department and the EMTs. They're going to show you some things that are very impressive about how EMT, because they're more distributed, they usually get there first. And they do provide life-saving services. They're trained. They just can't transport. So I look forward to learning more. And I also hope we're going to see some ways that the 911 dispatching can be improved. And I've talked to the fire chief and to the manager about some ideas that we heard. We didn't flesh them out. And I'm hoping that there's a conversation going on about that. Anyway, I was disappointed that I didn't get dunked by a single commissioner, not a single one.
Not yet.
So, but I did get dunked by some wonderful, beautiful, lovely children. Just great. It was so much fun. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just concluded a trip to St. Augustine, and I wanted to share that I think that there's a facility down there that might serve as a model for us here in Athens, Georgia. I was driving through the community and sort of had left the traditional area with the old Spanish fort and the old historical European influence developments, and went through the black neighborhood and drove by a old two-story building that had a sign in front of it that said Lincolnville Community Center, now open, come in. Went in there, and it was the historic pre-integration black high school that was managed by a volunteer Friends Board that had organized a museum in that facility that very effectively told the story of the black community in St. Augustine, beginning with the 1400s, when North African sailors traveled with Columbus to America. The first Africans in America weren't slaves. I learned that there. And then Spain, the king said, any slaves that come to Florida, they can be free as long as they convert to Catholicism and join the militia. So the first route of the Underground Railroad went south to Florida in the 1600s. I learned that. And then these black militiamen created a black community and a black fort that was the first line of defense for Spanish Florida. And General James Oglethorpe from Georgia traveled down there to try to conquer Florida for the English crown. And he was resoundingly defeated by the black militiamen at Fort Mose, just north of St. Augustine. You fast forward to the Civil Rights era, 1964, there was a notorious hotel right as you come into St. Augustine with a large pool that was segregated. Courageous black folks sought to integrate that pool in 1964, and there's a photo that I had forgotten about until I visited this museum of this infamous hotel manager pouring muriatic acid into the pool as black people tried to swim. Martin Luther King went down there with Andrew Young. Martin Luther King was arrested. I saw his original arrest record there in this Lincolnville Community Center. And it was a wealth of knowledge there, and it was a story untold in a lot of ways. And as Commissioner Davenport promoted Michael Thurman's upcoming book signing of the reprinting of A Story Untold, which is a remarkable text that tells the black history story here in Athens, Georgia. I really would like to see a facility like what's in Lincolnville here in Athens, Georgia. And I would just like to offer, for anyone listening, I'm here to support you, to encourage you, to be an ally, to do whatever we can to tell this fascinating history of black history here in Athens, Georgia, because we've got the historical markers about the War of Southern Independence. We've got the Confederate Monument on Broad Street right downtown. It's really a shame that we don't have more facilities that tell the holistic history of this area with a focus on the fascinating black history of Athens, Georgia. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Thorne.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill, I know you're not going to get tired of all of us saying we're going to miss you and thank you because you've been putting up with us, but I know I was probably the slowest one in the drawer there, but thank you for everything. You've never seemed impatient with me, no matter how my questions sounded. I would like to acknowledge working with Patrick and Economic Justice Coalition with the food giveaway at Rama. We served over 100 families, and it was so unique because police officers came out and helped out. So the community got to see the police officers in a different light, and it brought, I think, some new energy in my district. On May the 30th, Chief Spruill met with residents in my district at the Suburban Resort, and we had over 30 people from my district there. I think they were very passionate and outspoken. I don't know what Chief thought, but it did lead conversation about starting a neighborhood association in my area, and that was one of the things I really wanted to do. And I love the diversity. We had Hispanic folk, Black folk, white folk. It was very encouraging. I'm just getting all into all of this environmental stuff, but I read where Kroger is going to be eliminating plastic bags all over the country, for all their stores by 2025. And I think that since we are talking about it here, we should at least reach out to the Kroger stores here and see what the plans are. I just read it and I thought that was exciting, so I didn't know that was going to be on your agenda, but I guess it's confirmation. I am so thankful for the move for the water hookups, the sewage hookups in Pinewood and in Country Corner. Again, I do really notice the efforts to include more of District 9 and some of our decisions. The last thing, I know that the mayor was talking about putting together, having the planning commission look at housing, and I think that is awesome. I do want to put a plug in for tiny houses and refab homes. We do have them around, so when this committee meets, I hope that we will look at both of those alternatives. And I am still concerned about Bethel Midtown Village. We've had some code enforcement issues. I was over there today and yesterday, but I do think that we really have to pay attention to those residents over there. But I'm good right now. I just have to, talking about my district, I know when this airs that Miss Mary Arnold is going to be watching. So I want to give out a shout out to Miss Mary Arnold because she is so, I don't know how she's all entertained, but she couldn't make the May the 30th event. But it's good when your constituents will acknowledge you and recognize you. So I do want to holler out to Miss Mary Arnold, one of my constituents in District 9. Again, I'm going to miss you, Bill. Before you go, though, we got some stuff we got to do.
We'll do it.
Mr. Hamby.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's interesting to hear everybody talk about Bill being excited to see them and being patient with them. I've never experienced that with Bill. So I'm just.
You're not excited, you're patient.
But I've had the opportunity to sit at this behind the rail for, I guess, 11 years now. And,
16.
Well, I was talking about me for 11 years. So I may not make it to 16, But certainly appreciate the 16 years you've put into it, Bill, and I know you're looking forward to having your Tuesday nights free, and I'm sure Ms. Berryman's looking forward to having your Tuesday, or maybe she's not. Maybe at home. But thanks a lot, Bill. You've certainly left Athens better than when you found it. So
Thank you.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn the public session and move into executive session.
So move.
I second.
Motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Parker to adjourn the public session, move into executive session for discussion of real estate. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, everybody, thank you for joining us this evening.